Thank you for the hand clap, and we can welcome Dr. Jaoko with another hand clap, because in the spirit of RRI, we appreciate those who take their time to teach us. Can you appreciate Florence Jaoko, Dr. Jaoko? Okay, so Dr. Jaoko and Dr. Ichangi. We have not appreciated Dr. Ichangi. Can you show your appreciation? Yes, in the spirit of RRI. And typically I would have told you how many years I've known them and their areas of expertise. Unfortunately, I'm a bit disadvantaged in that area. So as they come, they'll introduce themselves and their areas of expertise. Thank you very, very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Florence Simbiri Jaoko, and I'm from the School of Law, Parklands. I teach there at the school, and I've had opportunity to teach in this college. A few years back, I taught at the environmental engineers, at Kabete. And I think I also taught one class of the surveyors. No, it's okay. Of the surveyors. So that is my interaction with this school. Today, I'm supposed to give you an overview of the Constitution, which you can imagine is a real big task because we are intending to focus more on land and natural resources. But just to give an overview so that we are all on the same page on why we are doing the RRI, and I think that as Professor Njoroge has indicated, this process is supposed to not only teach us about the Constitution, but we are also supposed to become more aware of the issues of integrity and leadership, which he has focused on. And the reason why it's important for all of us to understand the Constitution is because the Constitution is the supreme law that governs all of us. And for those of you, I believe the university has actually done a fantastic job of ensuring that each one of you has access to our Constitution. And not just the university, even if you just go to Google, for you students who may say that you've not seen a hard copy anywhere, if you Google Kenya Constitution 2010, even on your phone, you will get the whole document. So in terms of accessing the Constitution, it's extremely easy. The other thing is that the Constitution, even though it's a legal document, it's not entirely legal. The Constitution is a culmination of so many things. It's about our politics, it's about our social issues, it's about everything that makes us as Kenyans. So when you look at the Constitution, don't be intimidated by thinking that the Constitution is for lawyers. The Constitution is for all of us as Kenyans. So that's, in my view, is very important. And I think that in terms of just capturing what the Constitution is all about, I want to refer all of us to the preamble of the Constitution, because for the first time in our history, we have a Constitution that has a preamble. And that preamble captures everything that we as Kenyans wanted to have the Constitution say about us and say about what we want to do. So the preamble basically says that we, the people of Kenya, which means every one of us, whether you voted yes or no, the Constitution binds you. So that's a clarification. In case you voted no, you don't have another constitution. This is the only constitution that now governs you. And it states that we, the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of all creation, honoring those who heroically struggle to bring freedom and justice to our land, proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation, respectful of the environment, which is our heritage, and determined to sustain it for the benefit of future generations, committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the individual, the family, communities, and the nation, recognizing the aspirations of all Kenyans for a government based on the essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and the rule of law, exercising our sovereign and inalienable right to determine the form of governance of our country, and having participated fully in the making of this constitution, adopt, enact, and give the constitution to ourselves and to our future generations. So basically, if you look at that preamble, it captures all that. If you look at all the chapters, the constitution has 18 chapters, and then it also has what are called what are basically transitional clauses, the schedules. There are 6 schedules to the constitution. So if you look at all the chapters, you will find that the preamble in one way or the other actually captures the spirit of the whole constitution. Now, I think that it's important for us to ask ourselves, why a new constitution? We had a constitution. For those of you who are very young, you probably, when you started hearing about the constitution, maybe it was when you were in high school, and you probably wondered why people are making such a fuss. And for some of you, you probably did not know why the fuss. I think the reason why there was a great fuss about the constitution is because when we got our independence, we had a constitution that was negotiated by the political elite and the colonial power, the colonialists. So in essence, ordinary Kenyans did not participate in the making of the constitution. After we became independent, it was also very clear that a lot of the provisions in the constitution were watered down. So initially we had a Senate, we had these county governments that we have again. We had a prime minister, we had the president, we had a judiciary that was supposed to be independent, the police service was independent, but slowly by slowly, a lot of the separation of powers, which is very important in a democracy. In a democracy, we say that you must have separation of powers. So the 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, are supposed to be separate and independent so that they can check on each other, so that if one is overreaching itself, the other can check it. Now, in Kenya, that almost disappeared because the presidency became extremely strong. Some of the things that had led Kenyans to actually fight for independence were also lost. So a lot of you who are young, you know that if you know about Mau Mau, the reason why Mau Mau went to the forest was because of land. But after they came out of the forest, there was no land. And up to date, you know that most of their descendants are languishing in poverty. So therefore, there was a lot of disillusionment amongst the Kenyans. And that is why, when you look at that, the preamble, when it talks about those who heroically fought for our independence, for our land, it includes all those people. The people who fought before independence, and then after independence, we also know, and the University of Nairobi played a very critical role in what we call the second liberation. Because a lot of the lecturers in this university, the students in this university were arrested, some were detained, some died, and from your own college here, you know that one of the student leaders who died in detention, Titus Adungosi, was part of the student body. He died as part of all the struggle that we're talking about. You know that people like Professor Michere Mugo are people who had to leave this country, even though they had actually been pioneers in this university. But as a result of oppression, they moved out of this country. And of course, the country suffered from that. We also know that there are other people that you can point at now. You know, the current Chief Justice was one of those who was detained. The former Prime Minister, who I believe was a lecturer here, was also detained. So the University of Nairobi has a long history with the struggle that Kenyans have had about the Constitution. And therefore, when we look at our constitution now, the fundamental things about the constitution is the fact of participation, that we all participated, whether you did not contribute directly or indirectly. The fact that there was a referendum gave you an opportunity to participate in the making of the constitution. The first constitution, there was no referendum, it was brought to us and we accepted it was the constitution. But this one, you had the opportunity, so that if the no, for example, had won the referendum, it would have meant that we would have looked at the issues they were talking about and would have had to come to some consensus on it. So that participation was very important in the making of this constitution as we know it now. Now, when we look at the various chapters that I have said, we have 18 chapters. All these chapters are very, very important. But some of the things that are very new in this constitution are things such as the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. If you look at chapter 2, it's very clear that it is us, the people of Kenya, who give power to anybody who governs us. Whether they're in the legislature, they're in the executive, or in the judiciary, they exercise power on our behalf. And that is why, even when we look at Parliament, for example, there is the provision that if we are not happy with elected leaders, we can recall them. And the Constitution makes that provision. When we are appointing judges, there's a provision for us as citizens to participate. If we do not think somebody should be a judge, we can write a memorandum, we can actually dissent from their appointment. In terms of the executive, the same process is followed. So we know, for example, that recently people participated in the appointment of cabinet secretaries or principal secretaries. And that is what it means, that we as citizens, we actually have the residual power. The power that is exercised it always belongs to us. So we only donate it to those people to exercise on our behalf. So that's a very important chapter of the Constitution. The other important chapter that has been expanded is chapter 4 that deals with the Bill of Rights. Previously in our old Constitution, we had a Bill of Rights, but it only dealt with the rights, civil and political rights. And civil and political rights are rights that you're very familiar with, like your right to participate in elections, to join a political party, to join a trade union, and if you are arrested for a criminal offense, for you to be given a fair trial, for you to be given an opportunity to defend yourself. Those are civil and political rights. The new constitution includes what we call economic and social rights. It even includes the right to development. And some of the issues we'll be discussing today about land and the environment and resources is about this right that we all jointly have an interest in our natural resources. We all have an interest in how our land is used. We all have an interest in how the environment is used and how it is protected. And the reason being that as the current citizens of Kenya, we need to enjoy the benefits of being in Kenya, of having those resources. But we must enjoy those benefits with the knowledge that there are future generations that are also entitled. Because the land, the country Kenya, will not expand. It will remain the same. There is no expansion. We are not going to get some other rivers. We are not going to discover other rivers other than River Tana, River Athi, the ones that we already have. There will be no other Mount Kenya. There will be no other Mount Elgon. Those are the only resources that we have in that regard. And we have to preserve them. We enjoy them now, but preserve them for our future generations. So those are very, very important new additions to the Bill of Rights. And those are very, very important. Some of the rights that Professor Njoroge has already referred to are the right to education, for example. And some of you, the students, you probably enjoyed the right to free, primary education, or you enjoyed some of the rights that have been expanded. For example, for the girl child, the fact that there's now affirmative action. Before that, you had to compete equally. You know, when I came to this university, there was nothing like, you know, if you're a girl and you got, you know, 13 points and you wanted to do law, because when I did law, the cutoff was 14 points. If you got 13 points, whether you're a girl or a boy, you did not make it, period. Now, at least because of recognizing that women have actually suffered from past discrimination, we know that girls can actually come into faculties such as engineering with probably slightly lower marks than the boys. And that is to give opportunity, so that in future we'll be able to review that and ask ourselves, do girls still need to have that, you know, advantage? And maybe we'll come to a point where we'll say they no longer need that advantage. So that things like affirmative action are not permanent. They are there to remedy past wrongs that have been committed against certain individuals or groups of individuals. So those are very, very important parts of the Constitution in terms of the Bill of Rights. Now, the other parts that I'm sure you're very familiar with are the structure of government that now has become probably more complex, because we now have the national government and we also have the county government. And the national government is a central government. It's not, we have decentralized the functions of government to the county. So when we talk about devolution, devolution simply means that services have been devolved to the lowest level. It doesn't mean that we have a federal system. You know, the countries that have federal systems are countries like the United States of America, Germany. They have federal states. And the difference with federal states is that actually each state, for example, you know, if you go to Alabama state in the US, they have their constitution, they have their court system, they have very many things that you will not find. So in Kenya, you cannot say that from Kiambu County, we have our Supreme Court where we have our, you know, Chief Justice of the Kiambu County. There's nothing like that. You don't even have a police service that is for Kiambu County. So there are things that are not devolved, they are national. The judiciary in Kenya is national. The National Police Service is national. The security services, the Kenya Defense Forces are national. So that at the lower levels, if you look at Schedule 5, which looks at what the county governments do, you will notice that the things that have been devolved to the county are things like some aspects of health services, some aspects of water services, agricultural services, but a lot of things that need policy that will affect all Kenyans is actually at the national level. And then you have the Senate, which is making a comeback. But the Senate is there to make policy about the counties, so that the Senate is the protector of the county government. Without the Senate, it means that the county governments will become very weak, because there will be nobody to look at the laws that they are making, whether or not those laws are uniform, whether or not they are delivering to us as citizens at that level. So that is the government that we have. And we know that county assemblies are there, they're elected, and they are performing the work that they should. The governors are in place. Now, one of the things that you may find that is still it's in the Constitution, but we haven't created structures for, is for the cities. For example, there's the possibility in the Constitution for Nairobi to be a metropolitan city, okay? As opposed to just being a county, so that it will be possible, and I suppose that Dr. Ishangi may be better, and the people from your college are better able to explain that, because I don't do urban development. But they can then be able to divide Nairobi city into different, you know, the way they do it, like in the UK, how they have boroughs, and, you know, you can actually have, maybe mini mayors. So if you have the borough of Eastern Nairobi, then you have somebody who is responsible for that, and then you devolve that government to a more manageable level. So those are the different types of government systems. that we have. The judiciary is very independent. It's protected in the Constitution. It has different, you have a Supreme Court which is new, you have the Court of Appeal, you have the High Court, and then another addition which is important for what we're discussing here. The Constitution specifically makes provision for land and environmental high courts. And that means that you don't mix all the cases from land and environment with the rest of what the other high court judges are doing. You have labor courts that are now strong and are established within the Constitution. So those are very fundamental things, and I think that for me, those are some of the things that are important in terms of overview. For us as citizens, it's very important for us to know our rights, but also to know our obligations, because Chapter 3 of the Constitution is on citizenship. As a citizen of Kenya, you don't just enjoy rights, you also have obligations and responsibilities. And part of that responsibility is what Professor Njoroge has talked about. As a university, whether we are students, whether we are people just working in the university, we are recognized as people who can give knowledge. We are supposed to be more literate than the average Kenyan. And therefore we have a responsibility to participate in the processes that the Constitution has provided for us. So if people are being appointed, if there are processes about laws being made, and we think laws are not being properly made, we have the responsibility to give input to those laws so that laws are made that are actually in tandem with the most current knowledge that we as a university can offer, with comparative experience that only the academics can be able to do. And of course, as academics, it's hoped that we will be able to do this impartially, so that at the university level, we are not expected to be the ones who are grouping ourselves in terms of political parties or tribal and ethnic cocoons. We are supposed to be actually giving opinions that are based on research and are objective and are for the good of the country. Thank you very much.